Welcome to Praise, Prayer and Preaching with the Rev Dr Rick Dacey, Senior Minister, Wesley Congregational Life.
So Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. This narrative is so familiar to us that maybe it doesn't really shock us or strike us or really surprise us, because that's what Jesus does, isn't it? Jesus walks on water. But for those first disciples, it startles them. It shakes them. This is unlike anything that they have ever experienced before, anything that they have ever witnessed before. It doesn't make sense to them, and they don't know what it means. Do we? Do we know what this means? Because there is a profound and powerful message in this text. It's a message that if we can receive it, it has the power to completely transform the church. It's a message that if you can receive it, has the power to change your life for good. And here's the thing, though. We have a hard time receiving God's message. It's very easy for us to read this text and to get all hung up on the how question. How is it possible for Jesus to walk on water? How is it possible that Peter could walk on water even for a few steps? How? And we get hung up there. But you know what? The how question isn't going to lead us towards any deeper understanding. No real understanding can come from the how question. How is it possible for Jesus to walk on water? It's not possible. It's not. This isn't Jesus displaying some impressive skill that he's worked on. He's not putting on a barefoot surfing clinic for the disciples. This isn't something that they could, hey, look what I can do. You come give it a try. No, it's impossible. This is a genuine miracle. According to all that we know or all that we are likely ever to learn about the physical world, what Jesus is doing when he walks across the water and when he calls Peter to come out and walk on the water, that is impossible. Now, let me be clear here. I fully believe that Jesus did walk across the water. I fully believe that. And I fully believe that when he did that, he was doing something that was, from a human perspective, absolutely impossible. And once we can come to terms with that, we can move on from the truly meaningless how question and get to that deeper question. Why? Why did Jesus walk on the water? Why gets us to the meaning in the miracle? Why is Jesus walking on the water? Most people I know, whether they're Christians or not Christians, most people I know will readily affirm that Jesus was a great teacher. I hear it all the time. Jesus, he's a wonderful teacher, and if we could just all follow what he does, live by his teachings, the world would be a much better place. But a lot of people, while they affirm his teaching, they have difficulty with his miracles. And I hear them just after they've said what a great teacher he is, comes the but. But that supernatural, miraculous stuff, I just put that aside. I can't buy all of that. That causes a problem. That causes a problem, though. Because miracles are an essential teaching form for Jesus. You can't affirm Jesus' teachings and discard his miracles because his miracles are an elemental part of his teaching ministry. Jesus didn't just teach about the world as we see it. He taught about the world as God sees it and as God intends it to be. He taught about the work that God is up to in the world. And it's a tough subject to teach. It's tough to help people to change their perspective from the world as we see it to the world as God sees it. It's a tough subject. And that's why Jesus used parables and stories and metaphors and allegories. He used things in our human experience to teach us about things that are beyond our human experience. And that's why he performed miracles. That's why he performed miracles. Jesus' miracles carry a teaching that transcends mere words. Jesus walking on water, it's not a magic trick. There's no ta-da. He's not looking for applause. He's not looking for accolades. He's not doing it to prove himself. Jesus never uses a miracle to impress people with his power. Never does it. He never uses it to convince doubters or detractors, though he has many opportunities. He never uses miracles to gather a crowd or to self-promote or to self-serve or to get himself out of a jam. And again he has these opportunities. We see it all through the Gospels. When Jesus is tempted to use his divine power to serve self. Again and again. From his temptation in the wilderness before he starts his ministry, and right through his ministry until he is hanging on a cross and he is being taunted, if you are the Son of God, save yourself. But again and again, as he is tempted to use his power to serve himself, again and again, he refuses. With Jesus, a miracle is never a magic trick. A miracle is a message. Let me say that again. With Jesus, a miracle is never a magic trick. A miracle is a message. So, what's the message in this miracle? What's the message that Jesus has for us and for his first disciples as he walks across the lake? Why is he walking on water? Let's take a closer look. Matthew tells us that right before Jesus sends the disciples off in the boat on their mission to the other side, Jesus calls the disciples to feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and a couple of fish. And they hear what Jesus is calling them to do. They hear it. They hear Jesus say a lot of things, and they hear that he's saying, you give them something to eat. But they know that it's just not practical. They know that, in fact, it is physically impossible to do what he's asking to do. It's not that they don't want to do what Jesus asks. They do. They agree with Jesus in principle. But they're not ready to glimpse the world as God sees it. They're stuck in the world as they see it. They're stuck with blinkers on. And it's all that they can see is those 5 loaves and those 2 fish, and that's not enough. And if there's not enough, there's not enough. It's impossible to do what Jesus is calling them to do. It's common sense. It doesn't matter what Jesus is calling us to do. If we don't have enough, we don't have enough. So what does Jesus do? Jesus has a teaching. He has a message. He has a message for these disciples and for us disciples. He takes the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and he gives thanks, and he breaks them up, and he gives them to the disciples to give to the people. And the next thing you know, the disciples are carrying up baskets full of leftovers. They have done the impossible. Do you see Jesus' message here, church? Without words, Jesus is teaching his disciples then and now, when I call you to do something, I will make it possible. Through the miracle, he's teaching something that words cannot fully convey. I will give you all that you need to be faithful to me, says Jesus. Don't trust in your past experience, trust in me. Don't lean on your own understanding. Lean on me. Trust in me with all of your heart. Do you get the message, church? But Jesus, he's not done. Jesus is not done with his message. He's not done with his teaching. Immediately, not a week later, immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him onto the other side. Now remember, this is the end of the day. It's getting dark. The wind is blowing up. And immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat ahead of him to go over to the other side. And while the disciples set out on the water, Jesus goes up on the mountain to pray. And right here, we have 2 meaning markers in the text. 2 things that help us to hear the message. And those 2 markers are the mountain and the waters. Whenever Jesus goes up on a mountain in Matthew, you can count on it. Something important is about to happen. Something really crucial is about to be revealed. And we could go through all those mountaintop moments. That's another sermon. Just know for tonight, know this marker that when Jesus goes up on a mountain, pay attention. Something crucial is about to be revealed. And the other marker is the waters. In the ancient world, open waters in the sea represent the chaos, darkness, the tumult of this world. And we see that reflected again and again through the Old Testament, right from the first chapter of Genesis. In the ancient world, they knew the sea as an unstable and constantly changing force in the world. Unpredictable, uncontrollable, vast and powerful, beyond all imagining. They knew that if you're out in a small boat on open waters, it doesn't matter how strong you are, or how skilled you are, or how smart you are, the wind and the waves are a lot bigger and a lot more powerful than you could ever be. So here are the disciples out on their small little boat in rough, choppy waters. It's nearly dawn. They've been out there all night, rowing for hours and hours. All through that dark night, they've been straining to make headway, and the wind is against them, and the waves are buffeting their boat. And I expect that there's someone here tonight who knows how that feels. Maybe you've never been in a little boat in rough, open waters, but you know what they're going through. You're feeling the chaos of the world against you tonight. The wind and the icy cold spray stinging your face, the waves buffeting your little boat. You haven't given in. You haven't given up. You're here tonight. You're holding on. You're still straining at the oars, but after hours of rowing through the night, your shoulders are aching, your hands are raw and numb, and you're feeling exhausted, body, mind, and soul. If that's you, if you're that person, then listen. There is a message in the miracle for you tonight. There is a word of hope in the miracle for you tonight. There's a promise for you in this word tonight. Maybe you're not that person, but church can sometimes feel that way too. Sometimes it feels like our small boat is hardly making any headway through the darkness and chaos of the world. People in the early church definitely felt that way. This was a very powerful image for them. They saw themselves as a band of Jesus followers in a tiny boat amidst a hostile world of chaos. And that's why this message, this miracle, had so much meaning for them. Jesus has sent his disciples out on their own, out in the middle of the night, out on the rough water, and they're tired, and they're weary. After a long night of rowing and little progress, they're probably feeling disheartened and discouraged. And Jesus responds to their fear when they see him. He says, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." When he says, "It is I," in the Greek, he's saying, "I am." He's claiming the name of God. Now, when Jesus is saying, "Take courage," he's not saying, "Hey, don't be a bunch of wimps. Come on now, put on a brave face, buck up." No, he's not urging his disciples to dig deep, to draw down from themselves, from their own well, some store of courage, to put on some bravery. No, that's not what he's saying. He's not telling them to summon up more courage from within themselves. No, what Jesus is saying here is take courage. Take heart. He is giving it. He is offering it. They need spiritual courage to live out the mission that he has set before them, and he is giving them what they need. Just like he gave it to them on the shore when they were feeding 5,000 people, he gave them what they needed to live their mission. Now he is giving them what they need. Take courage. He's not demanding it from them, he's giving it to them. The world that they're called into buffets their boat in the waves of pain and brokenness and the winds of injustice and iniquity. They need spiritual courage to keep moving forward. And Jesus gives them all they need and more. Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. So, why does Jesus walk on the water? If he wasn't trying to show off his power, to prove himself, or to prove that he was the Son of God, because he doesn't use miracles that way, then why is he walking on the water? When he went up on the mountain to pray, why didn't he just leave the disciples on the beach? You wait here. I'll meet up with you here after I'm done with my prayers. Then we'll get in the boat and we'll go. Why didn't he do it? That would have been much easier, wouldn't it? Why doesn't he do it that way? He sent them out onto the water because that's where the church needs to be. Not sitting on the beach, but out in the midst of the world in all its chaos and darkness and tumult. That's where the church needs to be. There are going to be times when we might not see Jesus, when it might feel like we're left on our own. There are going to be times when we wonder where he is and how we're going to make it. There are going to be times when it feels like maybe he's forgotten us, that he's left us, he's abandoned us. But he hasn't left us. And he will not leave us. He will not forsake us. He comes walking to us on the water. It's a foretaste, this passage. It's a foretaste of his Great Commission promise in Matthew 28. I am with you always. Think about that promise. We don't know what that means. We don't know how he is with us always. And we get stuck on the how question, we're never going to receive the promise. Well, we don't know how it is we encounter his presence, but we know that when we do encounter his presence, it's going to be in ways that we don't expect. It's going to be in ways that might startle us. They might even shake us. But he will give us what we need to live our mission. He will give us what we need. He is with us always. Take courage. I've got you. I'm not going to let you go. Don't be afraid. That is why Jesus walks across the water. But what about Peter? What about Peter? Why does he walk across the water? Simple. He walks across the water because Jesus calls him. He sees Jesus out on the water, and that's where he wants to be. What does he say? He doesn't say, Jesus, if I can figure out how to do this myself, I'll come out and see you. No. He doesn't say, Jesus, if I go on a course, I can learn about water walking and then I can join you. No. What does he say? He says, if it is you. He has gotten beyond the how. He doesn't understand the how. At this time, he doesn't even understand the why. He's on the who. And who is the most important question to ask here. Who? If it is you, Lord, call me to come to you and I will come. I will walk out to you on the water. This is Peter's first great cry of faith. If it is you, call me to come. Oh dear. Jesus responds, come. This is an oh dear moment for Peter. I was all great sitting in the boat making this declaration, if it is you, Lord. What Jesus says, come. And I wonder how long he held on to the gunnels. I wonder how long it was that he considered, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Before, at last, this fisherman who knows better stepped out of the boat and started walking on the water. Something he doesn't know how to do. Something he's not even sure why to do. But he knows who it is who's calling him come. And so he walks, but you know what happens. You read ahead. You know what happens. He feels the wind and the waves, and we can look down our nose at Peter. He feels the wind and the waves against him. He looks down, and he sinks like a rock. But then what does he do? Every impulse in this fisherman's body is going to be to get back to the boat, to get back to what is familiar, to get back to what is secure, to get back to what is safe, to get back to his mates, to get back to fishing, to leave this whole thing behind. But no, even in the midst of his panic, as he is going down, as he feels himself drowning in the middle of the lake, he reaches out and he says, "Save me, Lord." He reaches out to Jesus, who, in a way that he cannot begin to understand, is standing on the water. He puts his trust in the one who called him, knowing that the one who called him will give him everything he needs. And the Lord is good on his promise. He lifts him up and he puts him back in the boat. And there's a calm. Before the calm, though, Jesus asks this question. He says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" It's not a criticism. He's not picking on Peter here. He's making an observation. You of little faith. It's not that Peter didn't have enough confidence in his water walking ability, or that he had enough certainty that he could walk on water. No. Why did you doubt me? Jesus is saying, have you not gotten the message? When I call you to do something, I will give you all that you need and more to live your mission. Don't you know it's me? I am. Don't be afraid. I want you to consider where you are in your journey with Jesus. I want to invite you to think about where you are in your journey. Are you on the shore? I'll stay here, Lord. You go. You send the rest out in the boat. I'll catch up with you on the other side. Or are you in the boat? You've gone out into the waters and you're feeling weary. You're wondering where to next, but you're holding on. Or are you stepping out? Are you stepping out in faith? Where are you? Wherever you are, Jesus' promise to you is, I am with you. I will not leave you. Follow me.